Across the American heartland, millions of square feet of brutalist concrete and steel are rising out of prime agricultural land. These massive campuses are hyperscale AI data centers. A single site often covers hundreds of acres, drawing gigawatts of electricity and millions of gallons of water daily just to keep the servers cool. Developers are scouting rural municipalities where land is cheap and zoning codes haven't been updated in decades. They've run out of space and available power in saturated coastal hubs, so they are moving inland. For the communities in their crosshairs, the sudden arrival of these proposals causes immediate alarm. Residents worry about local aquifers running dry, ratepayer utility bills spiking to subsidize grid upgrades, and the incessant drone of diesel backup generators. As new rural proposals cluster across the country, we see a parallel spike. Over 100 local data center moratoriums enacted in the last 24 months. From North Dakota to Georgia, county boards are passing emergency pauses, hoping to freeze development. Local leaders and residents often believe a moratorium builds an impenetrable wall around their town's resources. While voting no on a data center might feel like a victory at the town hall meeting, an indefinite ban is often the start of a new set of risks. Without a specific strategy, local leaders may find themselves facing litigation and state-level overrides that remove their control entirely. Let's compare the defensive moratorium against a proactive Community Benefits Agreement, or CBA. First, legal vulnerability. For a moratorium, the risk is incredibly high. By passing a ban without explicit state authority, towns fall into the ultra-virus trap, acting beyond their legal power. Well-capitalized tech developers know exactly how to exploit this. They immediately sue to overturn the ordinance, often claiming the ban is an uncompensated regulatory taking of their private property. For a small town, fighting a trillion-dollar tech company in court quickly bleeds the municipal budget dry, and usually ends with a judge throwing the moratorium out anyway. But say the ban holds up. Now you face state preemption, and the probability is exceptionally high. State governments want the investment hyperscalers bring. If counties block development, the state loses billions in potential revenue. To protect those economic interests, state governments will simply rewrite the rules. Look at the West Virginia State Capitol building here. In 2025, West Virginia lawmakers passed legislation explicitly stripping local municipalities of their zoning authority over high-impact data centers, prioritizing state economic goals over local objections. When the state steps in and preempts your local laws, the town council completely loses its seat at the table. The facility gets approved, but the residents lose any ability to negotiate protections. Fighting a tech giant with a poorly structured, indefinite moratorium doesn't actually stop the facility. It merely guarantees the data center will be built in your backyard with zero local input, zero environmental safeguards, and zero financial upside. Under a CBA, financial benefit shifts to direct community wealth. Instead of a ban, leaders treat developers as partners. Before permits are issued, the town drafts a contract bypassing inefficient state tax systems, forcing developers to inject millions directly into a local fund. The community gets to dictate exactly where that money goes, mandating investments in rural broadband expansion, funding local schools' STEM programs, or building affordable housing for residents. This is how Lancaster, Pennsylvania, secured a $20 million direct community fund before construction even started. It's also how areas like Loudoun County, Virginia, managed to cut residential property taxes by nearly 40%. This wealth does require a heavy lift. Local leaders must engage in intense, upfront legal negotiations, and ultimately they have to accept that the facility is going to be built. That requires much more political courage and administrative effort than simply appeasing a frustrated crowd by voting no. By securing a CBA, a community trades the uncertainty of a legal battle for a formal partnership, one that converts a large-scale project into a source of long-term infrastructure funding and direct property tax relief. Under a CBA, environmental enforcement relies on strict hard locks. Because it's a private contract, a town can write specific, non-negotiable numeric caps directly into the agreement, rather than relying on vague state guidelines. You can establish a hard limit of 20,000 gallons of municipal water usage per day. You can set strict noise decibel maximums tied directly to the pre-construction ambient levels of the surrounding farmland. These localized contractual standards are often far stricter and much more relevant to the immediate neighbors than any generic environmental permit issued by a state agency. The real power lies in how these caps are enforced. If secured with a letter of credit, the town can automatically draw on millions in penalty funds the moment a cap is violated. There's no waiting for a judge to rule. By choosing a contract over a ban, a town bypasses costly, protracted litigation while securing precise, undeniable environmental protection for its most vital resources. Let's map your strategic choices. Path A is an indefinite moratorium. That inevitably ends in lawsuits, state preemption, and lost revenue. Path B is a proactive 60-day pause to negotiate a community benefits agreement, securing legally binding environmental caps and direct community wealth. This highlights the only valid use for a moratorium. It's a strictly time-limited pause to buy time for negotiations. It's never a permanent solution. If you successfully ban a development, the facility doesn't disappear. It will just be built right across the border in the neighboring county. When that happens, your town still suffers from the regional power grid strain and aquifer depletion, but you receive absolutely zero of the tax benefits to help deal with it. Take a look at this. This is what a successful integration looks like, rather than building flimsy legal walls that big tech easily knocks down. Instead, it is time to draft ironclad contracts that force developers to pay the toll, turning an environmental liability into a community's most valuable long-term asset.